All right, welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, and this is
Dr. Crystal.
Thanks for joining us today. We're talking about menopause and exercise and how important that is. You know, Dr. Crystal, the menopausal transition is tough. Hormones are dropping, symptoms of menopause are floating around. Plus, there's increased risk of like heart disease at this time, bone issues, right?
Yes.
So we've done a lot of shows on menopause and helping women out who are going through that. But today we wanted to specifically talk about exercise.
Yes, because we all know, and we're not just talking about the benefits of exercise. We know that exercise or movement, physical activity is supportive for cardiovascular health, brain health, overall health. But what we want to do on this show is just kind of drill it down to the best types of exercises that the menopausal woman should focus on.
Yeah. And it's a little different than what you think. Is that fair to say?
I think so.
So on today's show, we're going to talk about menopause and fitness and why it all matters. So let's get right into why this all matters and why we're talking about adding in a type of exercise that maybe a lot of women don't think about. Tell us why this kind of exercise program or the exercises we're recommending are important during menopause.
Well, we know that the menopausal years, you have the fluctuations in those key hormones, estrogen, progesterone, even testosterone levels start to decrease. And we typically think of these hormones as it relates to female sexual characteristics or the reproductive cycle, but those hormones play many other roles in the body, and they stimulate more than just the release of an egg.
Right.
You know, it's about stimulating the brain and the nervous system, as well as kind of providing a stressor. And when we don't have those hormones available, then you kind of have to stimulate cells in a different way, and certain exercises provide that external stressor in replacement to what the hormones used to do.
Right. You told a story where when you were a fitness trainer, when somebody new came into the program. Tell us about the women versus men when they were new to the program.
Right, and I did it as well, and I used to be a cardio junkie. I think I've talked to you about this, but when we would get new members to the gym, we would show the women all of the exercise classes. Now here's your Zumba, and this is going to be your cycling class and your aerobics classes, and of course we had to show them the cardio equipment. And then for men, we took the men straight to the Smith machine, and we took them to,
I can see this.
We showed them all of the different weights and gave them a nice orientation to the weights section. And that has created this culture of women just really not feeling comfortable doing lifting weights.
Lifting the weights, yeah.
There's also this misconception that when women start lifting weights that they're going to start looking too muscular. I remember, I'm not going to say who, but someone's like, yeah, you're going to do that and you're going to start, looking quote unquote manly,
a lot of women worry about that.
And women, it's kind of changed a little bit, but there was a time where women did not want to look too defined. They wanted to be slim, but not muscular. You didn't want to see definition. That's kind of changing now.
It's changing, but it's really important because, and again, I just want to reiterate this point. In menopause, you've lost like estrogen. Estrogen is way low. Estrogen's an androgen for women. It helps to maintain muscle mass and metabolism, and so you don't have that hormone. Now, you could do hormone replacement, but even if you're doing that, exercise, specifically weight bearing, is kind of like replacing that.
Yes.
It's maintaining your muscle and your metabolism that's so important, right? So let's go ahead now again, traditional methods, you mentioned the cardio and the classes. That's wonderful stuff. You've done them all, I know. And she's competitive in them all, trust me, right?
In the front of the class.
Right there,
With the,
beating everybody, looking
with
around.
the perfect little outfit on, too. You know, you have to look the part.
So all of that is great, but again, when it comes to the muscle mass, the metabolism, body composition, bone health, women at this age, we need to add weight-bearing exercises. Why? And that's because without estrogen, you have a whole list of things here.
We do.
Low estrogen. Look at it. Go through some of this here.
Well, so your cells just don't respond to that anabolic stimuli. There's a reduced response in men and women with age, but you see it a lot with women because we don't have the estrogen or the testosterone. Decreased estrogen impairs muscle regeneration.
Ding, 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 that's huge.
So what you have to force that generation.
Get out there, you gotta do some
Exactly.
ways.
So you have to, and when we say force that generation, what we're saying is we know the impact of weight training is kind of tearing down that muscle, and it's forced to grow back stronger. And the estrogen used to kind of help with that process. We also see that the decrease in progesterone and estrogen reduces that the connection to the nerves, that nerve to that muscle cell.
Yeah.
And so you're not getting that neuronal stimulation to that muscle to tell it to kind of to pump and
grow.
to grow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's where the weight bearing becomes critical. But when you look at all of those changes that happen with menopause, right? That's a lot. What that tells me at the end of the day, there's not one exercise that's best. It's going to take a combination of things, most likely, right?
Right, and that's a good point, Dr. Mike, because we'll talk about specific exercises, and we're not saying to completely stop your walking or stop your slow cardio. But what we are saying is you need to shift your focus, where at one point, maybe that was all you were doing to be active, and you were proud of yourself, and you can still be proud of yourself by taking the step to get out, get to the park, to walk. My mom, she walks in the mornings, but what we're challenging you to do is understanding in this phase of life that you're going to have to add in some lifting.
Yes.
I hate to just say it, but you really have to add the weight-bearing exercises. The general cardio is just not enough.
Right. So as you pick up your paper to get squared away again, Robson's going to put the camera on me, and I'm going to give my little high horse opinion about all this. Muscle strength and muscle mass is longevity. Dr. Crystal and I, we have a show called Live Foreverish. It's a podcast we do. Go check it out at liveforeverish.com. If I might say, it's a pretty good podcast. We often talk about the importance of maintaining muscle health because that is your big metabolizer. It keeps you strong as you age. It keeps you moving and active. So all of this is the cardio is important. Don't stop that stuff. But you got to start focusing during this transition in your life on muscles. Good?
That's great, Dr. Mike. It also helps to support insulin sensitivity, that we have those changes, and overall body composition.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of these exercises for menopause. Now, the first one, I know you've done all these. We already know that. But I know this is one of your favorites because you have talked about this before. You like to sprinkle it in some of the shows. And you even talked to me at our office about it, and that is the high-intensity interval training.
Right, and I would have to say before we say this, everything that he says is right. I love, we call it HIIT classes. So these are group classes. You can do this on your own, but I like to do it with a group or with like my DVDs, with my apps.
You just gave your age right there.
I know, right? But I've got my DVD, but with my fitness apps. the HIIT classes, but these are classes where you are working at a greater than 80% max heart rate. And we see that. You see that on your exercise equipment.
Yeah.
But the work
Pushing it hard.
intervals are short. So it's kind of these bursts of high intervals or high intensity training, about 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then you get a rest in between. And so you're bringing that heart rate down in between.
A lot of good research on this too, that shows benefit to muscle, cardiovascular itself,
Yes,
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and so what you find with the HIIT training is that you are able, like you're pushing yourself harder than you think you can push yourself. But then you get those moments of rest. And research has shown that just 3 months of regular high-intensity exercise training, post-menopausal women were able to support better insulin sensitivity and skeletal muscle just as much as pre-menopausal women. But one thing I wanted to say, Dr. Mike, is I wouldn't suggest if you're not really into training, I wouldn't start with HIIT.
I mean, and we're gonna get into stages. That's coming up. Maybe because we're really kind of talking to the woman who is kind of active already.
Yes.
Right. We have steps coming up for those maybe that are not as active. So so that's HIIT. You love to do it.
Love it.
Now
Real quick.
Uh-oh.
The HIIT, there is a strong stimulus to the visceral fat.
Yeah, gets that
deep
burning.
fat, yes.
Yeah, gets that burning. So when I like to exercise, I get my 8-tracks out.
Whoa.
And
I don't even know what he's talking about. I don't know what that
Robson
is.
knows my 8-tracks. You said CDs. I grew up with 8-track day. Anyways, what I like is known as SIT. Now, I like it's funny that the acronym is SIT. This is not about sitting, although it's kind of funny. I like the one called SIT. It's known as sprint interval training, and it's something that I've been doing and didn't realize there was a name for it.
It's a thing.
Right? It's it's on. So I like my elliptical, right?
Yes.
And there's different programs on there, and I found one that I really liked where you were at a kind of a lower resistance, and there's an arrow that tells you where your speed should be.
Yes,
and you're just it's nice. Listen, it's a good workout.
I
right?
love the elliptical.
But then after about 5 minutes, all of a sudden it's like ding, 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 ding. Resistance goes up a little bit, and that red arrow goes way up for speed.
Ooh.
And it's only for 30 seconds.
Yes.
And you're just like, when it first happens, you're like, what's going on? Like you're trying to keep up with the thing. It's like, ah! And so then it's back to the, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what I found with that? This is a side note, but it forces that real deep breathing.
Yes. It's like all of a sudden you're like, like you're really,
You can feel those endorphins too. It's almost like you feel that sympathetic nervous system kicking in.
And here's why I can do it. I only have to do it for 30 seconds. But you do it several times throughout a 20-minute or 25-minute program, right? That's SIT.
And I like that you said the 20 minutes because when you are exercising in that way, you're not there all day. This is not an hour-long
simple
workout.
Overall, it's great. It's not too long. You're getting that intensity 30 seconds at a time. Again, studies show it is good for muscles.
Yes.
Obviously good for cardiovascular. And whether it's HIIT or SIT, there's evidence of longevity with these types of programs. Now, what was big in the past, you were talking about this, was that Zone 2.
Yes, well, and we're still seeing that Zone 2 is popping up everywhere.
But what is it again?
So Zone 2 is where you're working at about 60 to 70% of kind of your max heart rate. This is that conversational workout.
Oh, right. Okay, because you can still talk.
You can still talk. So this is the one where you call your mom or your girlfriends, and you get your full workout in and catch up on all the latest and greatest gossip that's going on.
Yeah, that's Zone 2 stuff.
That's Zone 2 stuff. It's thought to be kind of the best way to get in that fat burning zone, the best approach for more of that aerobic and kind of increasing the mitochondrial respiration in your cells. But what we're finding for women it's good for men and it's good for women, but women need a little bit more intensity.
Especially at this age group, this transition.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, remember we talked about that. That's why we're going to get into weight bearing coming up here. That's so important. But the issue that I have with Zone 2 is the workout is so much longer.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I mean, you're talking 45, 50-minute, hour workout. Yeah.
Yes.
See, I can't do it. I'm sorry. Robson, 20 minutes, 25 tops.
That's it.
So I'm sticking with my sit.
It's good for, the Zone 2 is great for what we call active recovery, meaning, let's say you've kind of done your weight training for 3 days and you still want to kind of work out, but you don't want it to be as intense. So you're trying to kind of let some of those muscles recover.
That makes sense. So I can see that.
So it's good to maybe do a day or so of that.
But listen, if you don't mind working out for an hour and you're talking to your friends, where we used to live in Plantation, Florida, where I used to live, there were groups of women that would just jog at a slow pace, and they were talking about their work day and everything the whole time, just going around the blocks.
Yes.
Not too fast.
Yes,
and just talking.
But I think what we're saying, again, just to reiterate that, for many people or many women, that's all they do.
Yeah, we got to add some things.
That's the go-to for the workout, and what we're saying is your go-to needs to be hit, sit, put your, if you're
some
with the
weights.
women, maybe pause and say, let's race to the stop sign.
Yeah. I would have liked to seen that with some of these groups. That would have been pretty funny.
And race to that stop sign, and now you're incorporating some of these more high intensity principles.
Speaking of that, weight bearing, we got to talk about it. I mean, this is weight bearing exercises. This is weights. Now, there's different ways to do it, but in general, you got to move into that part of the gym. Where, picking up, whether it's free weights or machine, whatever. Machines are probably fine too.
That's a great way to start.
Yeah, but you just, you got to move into that part of the gym because this is about strength and power now. This is heavy resistance training.
Right, and so what we're saying, if we want to look at the prescription, is you want your reps to be around 8. And so what we're saying is, by the time, if you're doing, let's say, bicep curls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by the time you get to 6, you're like, I can't hardly, it's 7, 8, and that 8 is almost
impossible.
Almost impossible, where you don't want to break your form. You don't want to start
that's the thing.
slinging
Good
yourself.
form is critical with all
right.
this. Yeah.
So if you get to the point where now you're incorporating other muscle groups,
then you might as well just put it down.
then you've kind of hit that max. But women often tend to be in the 12 to 15 rep range. And so what we're saying to stimulate that muscle, due to the decline in these hormones, you kind of have to go heavier than you would think with the lower reps.
Yeah, so and go get a fitness trainer like Dr. Crystal was, right? They'll help you out. They'll get you started. They'll talk about the major muscle groups, how to exercise those groups. They'll give you an idea where you should be starting out with your weight and what your goal may be over time, right? So it's just like you go to those classes, you get instruction there, go get instruction with the weights.
I agree, because it can be very intimidating, and the worst thing is to go in and you're not performing the exercise properly, and then you have an injury, and now you're out of commission for a month or two. And so there are some facilities, Planet Fitness, I'll just say it, they have a really nice weight circuit. So you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, you just go from one to the next.
You go from one machine to the next, and you can get all the major muscle groups. And so, go to the facility or the local community center. That's a great place where it's not very expensive.
Yeah.
And have the trainer kind of give you your little circuit, and you can write down the machines.
Now, I like the resistance band. Does that count here?
That counts.
Okay.
But you have to use the heavier band.
You got to make sure get the heavier band and kind of get that same, because the different bands, some of them you can go for 40, but other ones, the thicker ones, No, they get tough.
Yes, yes. And then you kind of have to, again, this is something that you can get an expert to maybe give you some exercises to do with the bands that can
Right.
put you into that really strenuous zone.
At the end of the day, the zone 2 type stuff, fine. We're not saying don't stop, but we got to get some add-ins here. And those add-ins are the hits and the sits and the weights, because things have changed physiologically. And we got to step it up in some of these categories of exercise, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention something real quick about balance and stretching and flexibility.
Yeah, that's for all of our yoga people out there.
Yeah, that's great. And by the way, if you do yoga, don't stop doing the yoga. We're just saying add a hit, add some weights. We're talking about add-ons here if you're already doing
Yes.
stuff. But I think I don't have much to say about it other than it's critical. You got to stretch. You got to stay flexible.
And we just on our podcast
We did this whole thing on flexibility.
recently talked about the connection. There's a new study on the connection between flexibility and longevity.
Yeah.
And people who were more flexible lived
Live
longer.
longer. I just, we tend to think of the stretching and flexibility as not part of the workout. They're like the pre and the post.
That's true.
And when you think of it that way, you often, sometimes be like, well, my exercise is done. I can skip the post because it's not really. Don't think of it that way.
That's so
Stretching and your flexibility stuff you do is part of the workout program. It's not a pre or post.
That's amen. Because the loss of muscle makes you more prone to falling.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of have that balance.
The balancing,
and that
the flexibility, for sure, 100%. So I just wanted to throw that out there. She
I
wasn't
like
going to
it.
let me put it in the script, but I made her. No, that's not true. We were into it. Now, listen, I know a lot of you are watching this. You're thinking, yes, I'm going through that transition. This is all great information, but I got one big question for you. Does this help with belly fat? Listen, it's a big question. It's one of the biggest questions menopausal women ask on Google. We have to talk about it.
It's the area during menopause that it's just the fat all wants to go there, and it's the last place to leave.
Yeah. Well, because there's just a lot of room. I mean, you can't gain a lot of weight in your ankles. There's just not a lot of space there, right? I mean, there's only so much space here, and I mean, yeah, you can gain, but there's only so much.
Right.
But your belly can. Yeah.
Lots of space, huh?
Lots of space is available. Resistant training, it works here, right?
Well, this is where we do have at least one study that we found, but this was something we talked about, Dr. Mike, is we are asking a very, very targeted, specific question. And so we need your researchers out there, give us more data.
Yeah.
But there is a study, resistance training decreased abdominal adiposity in postmenopausal women, 3 days per week, supervised training for 15 weeks. But, again, we're looking at the menopausal woman, targeted weight loss or in one specific place, and we don't have
There's not a lot of research on it.
research.
Yeah.
for that.
A lot of fitness experts will tell you can't target a fat area, right? You're just overall it's about burning what you've stored from excess eating. I mean, that's what fat is. Fat is essentially energy that you haven't used. And so we have a chart here of all these different types of exercises and the calories that are burned. I think was it per hour? Or
Per hour. And
per
this
hour.
is for a person who's 160 pounds.
Robson, can you throw that up for us? You could take a look at the chart there.
And look at that. So I immediately saw the top one was running 5 miles per hour. But I said, man, that is moving for an entire hour. I mean, that you are on the treadmill. Imagine 5.0 on the treadmill for an entire hour.
I ain't gonna do that. Look at swimming.
Now that makes sense.
Swimming is great, great workout overall. But it's great for joints and stuff like that, right?
What surprised me, and my mother-in-law does this, is water aerobics. Look at, you can burn 402 calories for an hour, and that's fun. I used to teach aquatic fitness.
Do you notice up on that chart my elliptical trainer?
That's up there.
365, baby. Of course, I only do it for 25 minutes, but
But you do your
it's still
sit.
good.
You
It's
do
still
your
good, yes.
your intensity.
I like it. Come on now.
Intervals.
And you can see the, look at golf, carrying clubs. I can do that one too, 314. Anyways, you can see the rest on there. At the end of the day, that's fat. It's burning that excess energy that you simply have not burned yet.
Yes.
And that means also on the eating side, you got to watch your calorie intake, because if you're burning a whole bunch and then you're just eating it right back.
Well, I'll tell you, when you're in the middle of that workout, you start second guessing everything that you've been eating. You're just like, I'm not going to have that if I have to work out this long for that one little donut.
I know, gosh.
It's not worth it.
Don't think of it that way. At the end of the day, you gotta burn some calories. If you're really going to want to lose fat, it's really just about burning calories.
Yes.
Well, eating less, burning more. It's a combination.
Right, and eating the foods, that wasn't really a part of this, but eating foods that are metabolically active foods that's going to kind of get the body the nutrients to target inflammation in the body, to help to manage those menopausal symptoms.
Great point, Dr. Cristo. You can't, you're not going to, how am I going to say this? You're not going to exercise your way to fat loss. You have to couple it with a better diet and less eating. You really do, right? And so imagine doing something like this. Cut your calories 250 a day, 300 a day, plus add in that exercise. Now you're talking about a deficit of 600-700 calories a day. Over time, that's your fat loss.
Yes. And just in general, this needs to be a lifestyle. It's a way of life.
It's just like brushing your teeth.
Yes.
It's just part of who you are now, right?
That's right.
So it is. Now, what if somebody is not? Because we've been kind of talking to more of the active woman. What about maybe the woman that's just not quite as active?
Yeah. So if you like to walk, because we started off saying the walking may not be the best, so find ways to add.
Enhance the
walk with some weights.
Yeah.
Or when you're walking, stop, do some squats, do some lunges.
Add some things into it. Yeah.
Or pause and do some push-ups off of the park bench.
Something. Yeah.
Or do
I like that.
So you
some
can
dips on the park bench.
Do some dips on the park bench. So what we're saying is pause, add in some type of weight bearing exercise.
Because walking is good. At the end of the day, we've done shows on walking and our ins and outs and stuff on our podcast. Walking has longevity benefit, cardiovascular. There's no doubt. It's just, remember, you're at a time in your life now where things have changed, and that's why these add-ins are so important.
Yes.
And just start slow. Don't go crazy, because then you're going to be all sore, and now you're not going to want to do anything for a week.
That's right.
You can't do that. So just start slow. We have a lot of suggestions here. Start riding a bike, swimming, pickleball. That's fun, actually. I enjoy pickleball. Whatever that is, dancing.
Yes, and always find a way with whatever you're doing. Find a way to continue to push yourself. Like if you get to the point where your bike ride, it's very leisurely, you've been doing it for so long, how can you turn up
make it more resistant, make it harder to pedal? Make it more
resistant, yes. So you always have to try to kind of keep, as your body adapts, adapt your routine. For sure. And that's where you can do some of the hits and the sits. Yes. If you're on a bike, maybe just sprint on the bike for 30 seconds. Just go at it. That would count as a sprint type of interval training. So last question, and again, this is, Dr. Cristo and we like to stick with the trends, and
What are people asking, right?
Yes.
That's where we got the belly fat one from, right? Another big question from menopausal women is about, will all of this kind of exercise, if I'm adding the HIIT and the sit and stuff, is it going to help my bone density? Because that's a big issue for women at this age.
And short answer, yes.
That's about it.
Yes. We have a systematic review and meta-analysis of 80 studies that included over 5,500 participants found evidence of a positive effect of exercise on bone mineral density in both early and late postmenopausal women.
Right. So, yes. Yes is the answer.
Yes, and yes.
So hopefully you found a lot of this information helpful. At the end of the day, you got to remember, let's make sure I'm summarizing this,
Yes.
right? That you're in this menopause transitional phase. Hormones are going down. Estrogen, progesterone, those are at least the estrogen, that's anabolic for you. So you're losing that kind of muscle stimulus. So we need to have these add-ons into your exercise routine. It just can't be the cardio anymore. It just can't be the yoga. We need to think about the hits and the sits and the weight-bearing exercises.
Yeah.
That's gonna become your estrogen in a sense.
Yes.
How do you like that? Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. It's not making it, but it's acting like it in a way because you're building muscle now for all that. How was that? Good summary?
Good job.
Oh, all right. Anyways, thank you for joining us today. By the way, if you go to lifeextension.com/active, that is a wellness blog that kind of goes through, I think, some more exercises, a little bit more of the research, lifeextension.com/active. And when you're there, shop around, check out, and use the discount code LELIVE. And you'll get 10% off $50 or more plus free shipping and handling. That's LE Live. And don't forget, we go live every
Wednesday
at
12 noon.
Eastern time. I put her on the spot.
I wasn't ready.
That's right, every Wednesday. So wherever you watch us, whatever channel, because we're on so many channels now, just like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is. That way you'll always know when we're about to go live on Wednesdays. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.